Hey there, welcome to the Stormwater World podcast. Hey, Stormwater fam. There's a lot of great resources in this episode, and it was just a pleasure getting to speak to Christian Hennessy. You can just tell when somebody loves what they do, and it just shows through immensely in this episode of the podcast. Give it a listen and let us know what you think in the comments, and make sure to subscribe over on YouTube as well. And a big shout out to our sponsor, Digital Stormwater. They're out there impacting stormwater one click at a time. Digital Stormwater is a full service digital marketing agency for stormwater people by stormwater people. So check them out at digitalstormwater.com. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to a new episode of the Stormwater World podcast. I'm excited about this episode because you know what? I live in Texas. Everything's bigger here in Texas, right? So if you're going to go big, you might as well go big. And so today we're going to talk to Oldcastle infrastructure. And I've got the perfect person to do that. With me is Christian Hennessy. He's a treatment product manager in stormwater with Oldcastle infrastructure. Christian, welcome to the pod. And thanks for coming in and visit with me today.
Thanks, Ty. Very happy to be here.
So not to put you on a spot that you represent a big company, but it's kind of hard to hide. You can't hide when I throw out the word Oldcastle, right? But before we get into all the talking points that we have today, and folks, we've got a lot of information for you, a lot of cool information because, and I hate to steal Christian's thunder, but you know what? When you're a big company, what can you do? You can put funding into innovation, and that's pretty exciting. And we're going to get to that. We're going to get to all that, what they're doing for the next generation of stormwater innovation. But before we do that, Christian, why don't you tell everybody, who you are and how do you fit into the Oldcastle world?
Yeah, certainly. Well, again, my name is Christian Hennessy. I work for Oldcastle Infrastructure as the product manager for our stormwater treatment products. I'm part of a team of product managers who are responsible for directing product-related activities for our national portfolio of stormwater products. I live in Portland, Oregon, and have a BS in civil engineering. I went to Oregon State University. Go Beavs! I've worked in the stormwater industry for about a decade, wearing various hats as a designer and manager for stormwater engineers. My passion for stormwater really stems from my love of the outdoors. I'm an avid hiker, an outdoorsman, and I desire to be a steward of that environment. And I see stormwater infrastructure as a way implementing the BMPs of stormwater as a means of supporting that goal.
Gotcha. So let's go ahead and rip off that first Band-Aid, which I think, as far as in the Oldcastle world goes, or in the stormwater world, is your most recent acquisition, right? Didn't Oldcastle, do you know anything about that? Didn't Oldcastle just pick up Hydro International?
Yeah, we certainly did. We're very excited about that acquisition. It further enhances our ability to deliver full-scale water management solutions. We have a bigger product breadth, industry presence, and resources. We're combining our product portfolios and that of Torrent Resources for deep injection dry wells. And now with the Hydro products, we're better positioned to support our mission of providing sustainable stormwater products to the industry leaders and contractors and engineers of the world.
I gotcha. And then I didn't realize this, but Oldcastle Infrastructure Product Group, that's who you're with, right? That's the actual technical
Correct.
group, right? And is part of an even bigger company in CRH in my little bit of cursory research that I tend to do, and of course the wonderful notes that you provided. So what is there? I couldn't figure out what does CRH stand for, or who is CRH. You want to give a little highlight onto that before we keep going?
Sure. Well, CRH is really the biggest company that you've never heard of. They're the leading provider of building material solutions in North America. They house various companies under them. So really CRH is the umbrella company, Oldcastle IPG, APG, Enclosures Group. There's a whole slew of companies that fall under the CRH umbrella. Yeah.
Now we got to go back. Now you can't just hit me with acronyms. APG. What's APG?
That's really more of our asphalt materials group, right? So they're all acronyms here. The IPG group that I'm part of is the infrastructure products group. So every one of these is its own acronym. So yeah, that's how we like to distinguish ourselves. Keeps it simple.
I know you've listened to a couple of episodes. You said so. You
Yeah.
got to talk to me like I'm five, right? So no, that makes a whole lot of sense. So what are some of the big trends or challenges facing water infrastructure and management today, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I mean, there are a lot of trends right now. We're seeing a lot of different challenges coming up, especially with pollutants, new pollutants of concern that are emerging. But really, when it comes to complex environments and engineered infrastructure, there are four broad needs that we're addressing with the water market and water management. One of those is directing water. So, very simply, it speaks to the manner in which you control and route water to stormwater infrastructure. And that's really integral to managing stormwater because we don't want to impact the other surrounding infrastructure. We don't want to impede on the foundations or erosion. So really, by directing the water and diverting it and slowing it down, we're able to make the built environment significantly safer. And the next trend would be storing water. That is, of course, is properly or rather capturing the water that is properly conveyed and putting it into a storage vessel and releasing it at a rate that is consistent with pre-developed conditions. So really the whole impetus of stormwater is to try to take a built environment and make it act like the pre-developed conditions. So
Right.
where there is now a big tall skyscraper and pavement, we want it and the downstream water bodies to think that that is still a nice grassy meadow with the water being infiltrated and treated and stored in a very similar fashion. So similarly to that, cleaning the water is also really critical, right? So as water is flowing across the site, it's picking up all sorts of contaminants that are collected within that water, and we rely on infrastructure to process and clean it. So that's a lot of the technologies that we develop is around that storage and the cleaning of the water. And then finally, transporting the water, of course, is critical as well. So we're moving large volumes of water from locations where there is more than is needed to locations that have scarce supply. So those are kind of the four big trends that we are seeing. And really, the most important needs and challenges for stormwater industry specifically include storing, cleaning, and treating the water.
It's funny, kind of to reiterate that and to highlight some of what you just said, because nobody's ever really came on when we've talked, like everybody, we always talk about the cleaning part, right? That's
Yeah.
treating the stormwater. We're treating the stormwater. And what I hear you saying, and I hadn't really thought about it, is really step one, the directing the stormwater and the storing of the stormwater really is part of the cleaning process, right? Like
Yeah.
being actually able to funnel it where you want it to go, as you said, pre-built,
Hmm.
conditions or as close as we can get it, so that we can mirror what Mother Nature was supposed to do in that specific footprint. Is just, to me, that's almost just as important as the cleaning itself, right? The filtering process, because the
Yeah.
better we can direct it and the better I feel like we can store it, it makes it easier to clean it. Am I on point with that? Am I kind of understanding that process correctly? Like, or that kind of that thought process? Am I on track there with what, with that?
Yeah,
Because again,
certainly.
you got to talk to me like I'm five, right? Because I just thought it was a good point. Nobody's ever talked about the 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 direction of the stormwater,
Yeah,
if that makes
it's
right?
all part of the beautiful puzzle of stormwater, and cleaning is just one component of it, right? So in order to properly clean it, you need to capture all of that water, and you need to hold it, retain it, infiltrate it. There are lots of different practices around just the storage component of water that can be utilized that ultimately aid and improve upon the environment. Right. So groundwater recharge is really a big thing, especially in California, where we have significant drought conditions, and really looking for technology that is going to take that resource that is stormwater and put it back into a location where it can be reused or used by our environment, part of the cycle again. So directing the water is just part of that. and putting it into the right location, whether it be a detention system or a dry well, is part of the overall project planning process. So as the engineers are really looking at site layout and site design, they're doing grading and grading their whole sites to these BMPs, and bringing particular amounts of pollutants or volume along with them. So it really is. It's a critical part of the design process.
And I know that you had said that storing and cleaning the water is where you're all where
Yeah.
Oldcastle infrastructure where your focus is. However, I
Yeah.
also think it's very interesting that you mentioned the transporting of water, because I think people forget that there's so many parts of the country. Like there's a city, I won't necessarily name that city. Okay, Las Vegas, that I really like. Um, that all that money, all that water's coming from other places, right? It's all
Right.
being transported into that city, middle of the desert, unless I'm mistaken, right? And so, you want to talk about that a little bit? I mean, I want to get back to the cleaning of the water and the things that you guys do, but
Sure.
it's on our notes or whatnot. And transporting water is it's very interesting to me, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah. I mean, it certainly is. And again, when you're talking about areas that have drought conditions or are
yeah,
in drought environments, that becomes a really critical component to sustaining livelihood, right, in those environments. And so we have, of course, not only the stormwater infrastructure BMPs, but we're providing, reinforced concrete pipes, plastic pipes. So, you name it. Our company has the product that will allow and rather support the desire or the initiative of whatever the project plan is. And if that plan is to move significant volumes, from A to B, we have a lot of different technologies out there to help support that.
yeah, and I don't shy away from product name dropping. I just don't do it. I just because I feel like people need to know what's out there. They need to be able to compare it. They need to be able to make the best decision for their particular project. So I think um your storm capture system, that's a good example of what you were talking about as far as the reinforced concrete systems. Do you want to talk about that for just a sec?
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to. So I think we're getting back to kind of that conversation around storing water, and storm
Sure.
capture is one of our primary products to do that. And just to kind of tell a little bit of a story on that, in ultra urban environments where there's a lack of available area, we're seeing that underground storage systems, installed underneath buildings or parking garages or parking lots, is really becoming a critical component of site design, because it's allowing for the maximum utilization of the job site at that surface area. So gone are the days where we can just put a pond on the surface and call it good. You really need to be a little bit more smart about how you are storing that water on site, because site area is becoming harder and harder to manage. And so this, of course, is not without its challenges, because the storage systems need to be very robust to handle the loading conditions, and may require watertight applications or vessels to ensure that the water is conveyed and available for reuse. So again, our storm capture system is a great example of that, where we are installing that underneath building foundations, taking full surcharge loads, and waterproofing the system so that the water can be used for irrigation or toilet flushing or whatever reuse application on site.
Great. Gotcha. Well,
Yeah,
you want to go from storage? You want to touch on treatment then? So we talked about, you just talked about storage. You want to talk about actually, I feel like we've done a lot to start already getting the water prepped for cleaning.
right,
Hopefully we've removed a lot of things, or or if we haven't removed them, we've let them settle, right?
right.
And then so now let's treat them. So what do you want to say about the treatment?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. And kind of taking it a step back, as we are
Okay.
saying, cleaning is part of that component, but the detention piece really can aid in the cleaning of
Right.
the stormwater as well, right? So,
Right.
uh, as you're allowing the stormwater to settle, or rather the TSS and whatever material is within it to settle out in the detention system, we're actually allowing that to act as a bit of a pre-treatment, right? So you can go in and maintain that and pull out a whole lot of pollutants in that process alone. So again, that being part of the puzzle, and then the next piece being cleaning, where you are really driving the efficiency of those systems and targeting a particular level of performance. So, some of the trends that we're seeing there, we're seeing push for improvement in the contaminants that these devices can remove and the overall efficiency they achieve. Most systems on the market are really good at TSS and hydrocarbons, but we're seeing a need and demand for emerging pollutants like nitrogen, PFAS, 6-ppd quinone, which is a big issue here in the Pacific Northwest. Not sure how familiar you are with that particular pollutant of concern, but
I'm not. Where's that? What is that one? The quinine? What
yeah.
is that?
So 6-ppd is a preservative that they use in tire manufacturing, and it's inert in its standard form, but once it breaks down and is exposed to oxygen, it converts into 6-ppd quinone, and that has a significant detriment to really fish population. What we had seen in the Pacific Northwest specifically was a significant death in coho salmon because this 6-ppd at very, very small levels was was killing off all of the species, and even all of those that were, you know, infant were dying at, periods of 4 hours after exposure. So it's a really significant pollutant, especially for, areas like the Pacific Northwest that really rely on coho salmon, not only for the industry, but as kind of a cultural representation too. So
Wow.
anyways, again, some of those pollutants, the PFAS and the nitrogen, the 6-ppd, they're all very difficult to remove from water sources. So the industry is going to need new technology and innovation to address those challenges, which is a key focus for Oldcastle. We're looking to innovate and improve our treatment technologies like perk filter or biopod, which are two of
There you
our
go. There you go.
primary.
See.
Yeah, there you go. There's a product plug for you. But those
Well,
are
you
our.
know what? Honestly, I think people listen to this pod, and I mean, I want to bring them value in the information you're providing, but I want them to be able to Google some stuff too, right? So if they've
Yeah.
got if they're in your area or if they're fighting that fight, I want them to be able to easily, go check it out, look up, the perk filter or the biopod or any of your all's products. So that's cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, no,
Plug
thank
away,
you.
sir.
And I will. I'll plug those products. Again, I am the treatment product manager, so Perk Filter is very near and dear to
It's
my
near
heart
and dear to your.
specifically.
There you go. Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there
That's
there are a lot
funny.
of great initiatives, and again, we'll get to the innovation side of it here in a little bit. But we're partnering with universities. We're looking within our own institutions, our own OWL lab, which is the Oldcastle Water Lab, which was a recent acquisition of ours as well. Paired with the improvements that we can garner in our treatment technologies through partnership with Hydro. So using, what they
Ah,
have learned and their experiences and taking that as well as the information we have, combining that into a nice slurry, we're coming up with some really cool ideas for the next generation of stormwater products.
gotcha. That's awesome. Well, and speaking
Yeah.
of the next generation of stormwater products, you've got some notes in here on how the Infrastructure Investment Act is affecting our industry. Do you want to touch on that a bit?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we're talking trends and some exciting things for stormwater and for infrastructure in general, we can't not talk about the IIJA, which again, I'm not sure how much that has been highlighted at all. I love my
No.
acronyms.
I'm just messing with you on the acronyms.
Yep,
It's so
yep.
funny
I
to me.
got you covered on that
It's like,
acronym. So the
I got
IIJA, that is the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act. A little bit of a mouthful, but that's a very, very exciting bill. It was signed into law by President Biden November 15th, 2021. And in total, it's authorizing $1.2 trillion for infrastructure projects, which is absolutely amazing. It's nearly half of those funds are new spending, right? So some of that was previously allocated for infrastructure projects, but more than half of that is new spending. So it's going to be dispersed over 5 years, which started in 2022. So you can already start to see the impact of some of this funding. And I think there'll be a link that we can provide to you that maybe you can include in the
Sure.
show notes that will highlight some
Absolutely.
of the areas that this funding is currently being used, and how Oldcastle is very well positioned in terms of our manufacturing arms to be able to support all of that investment. So again, getting back into what the IIJA is, it's going to fund a wide array of infrastructure projects, including transportation, broadband, and of course, water. The funds are going to be distributed in a variety of ways, including formula funding, competitive grants, private projects and partnerships, direct federal funding. So a lot of different ways that you can go out and get those funds, and you can find a lot more information on that on our website and how we can assist specifically with navigating those infrastructure projects.
Well, I definitely that's a good thing. We have a lot of
Very
infrastructure
good thing.
issues in this country, and that's a whole nother podcast. That's a whole nother episode. We could talk in depth, but hey, we kicked the can down the road for too long.
Yeah.
And so now we really need to address some of these things, and it's good that that you guys are on top of it and taking advantage of that. So with taking advantage of that, how do you envision, technology advancing your stormwater practices kind of in general, or what you all are doing with your acquisitions, just in general, just what do y'all got going on in terms of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of exciting things going on in stormwater right now, especially on the technology front. We're really starting to leverage AI and cloud softwares to really drive improvement on stormwater products and stormwater infrastructure in general. So we're really seeing a movement towards smart infrastructure, which includes stormwater devices, of course. Some of those are data-driven maintenance items, which could be a telemetry device that indicates water or sediment levels for early notification when a system needs to be inspected or maintained. So no longer do you have to have maintenance crews going and popping manholes and putting in sticks and flashlights to determine whether or not a system needs to be maintained. We can allow this technology to inform that and be much more intelligent about how they're applying their resources to maintain those products. So it's a lot better, just a lot smarter way to manage stormwater infrastructure. And most of those are paired to some type of cloud-based software that will allow them a user interface to see specifically the systems that need to be maintained on a map. So again, it's going to make things so much more efficient in the cost of managing those BMPs. Smart storage is another one that comes to mind. There are products out there on the market that are using predictive software to look at available storage capacities of ponds or detention systems, and looking at weather forecasts to ensure that proper storage is available for that storm, right? So it's discharging the held water and using it on site for some type of application and preparing for the next storm event. So again, ensuring that we have the capacity within the detention infrastructure to support the storm events. You don't want ponding, you don't want flooding, and these smart storage systems can really help support that. Last one that comes to mind is leak detection. So we're talking about transport of water, and this is where this really comes into play. The U.S. loses roughly 2 trillion gallons of treated drinking water annually, and that's costing municipalities and government agencies upwards of $7.5 billion. So it's a significant issue. And we can use AI-powered real-time monitoring programs like FIDO, which is a group that we have partnered with at Oldcastle, to use this software to monitor and predict where there are losses of pressure or losses of water, so that we can go in and address that problem and help reduce a lot of this waste and loss. So those are some that come to mind, especially on the waterfront.
That leak detection, and when I saw that in the notes, that's a lot of water.
There's a lot of
Are
water.
we
Yeah.
talking? Yeah, I mean, How are we talking big leaks that it's detecting? Are we talking leaky toilets? Like, so are we on
Yeah.
which side of the meter are we on, or are we on the whole thing to where it can actually, send out notifications to citizens and say, hey, we noticed that your meter is running 24/7. So it's not only costing you money, it's costing the world water. But like, is it how deep does this, if do you know, like, or is that something, I don't know if that's something you're into, but do you have any of that information? Like that, it's interesting to me, that leak detection.
Yeah, well, it's going to be used across the board, really. But I think the biggest uh, or who is rather going to reap the most from this would be the municipalities and the government agencies of the world, because they're spending a lot of money to treat and clean this water. And as we are moving it from those plants to people's taps,
Yeah,
we're losing
right.
a lot of it, right? So really it's
Oh,
in
okay.
that process that we're
That work,
seeing
yeah.
the significant loss. And
Wow.
so again, that's, leaky pipes, that's broken pipes, that, and this is
Oh my
all
gosh.
underground, right?
Huh.
So you don't know unless you
Oh,
start to really dig into it, literally dig into it, and see that you have an issue. And this type of technology will allow people to detect this by means of seeing pressure drops right through their system, by being just informed where they're seeing a change where there shouldn't be, right? So it allows them to be quicker in responding to a potential issue. So
absolutely.
it's really what is needed in order to protect this resource that we have, instead of, and it's not a bad thing necessarily that it's going back into the water, or excuse me, back into the ground, right? Because we were talking about infiltration and groundwater
Yeah.
recharge,
Yeah.
so in that sense that's okay, but we're spending a lot of money to make this potable water, right, for use by
Right.
citizens, and it's just going to the wrong
Right.
location. So anyway, bad use
No, no,
of
absolutely.
funds.
No, no, absolutely. 100%. Because at my house, right? At
Right.
my house, Little Orange, Texas, uh, these guys are great. Guys, City of Orange guys, they do a great job. They got a lot to have to deal with because of the, again, aging infrastructure.
Yeah.
Uh, our pipe broke. They came out, on a, and so it didn't break all the way, like, but it obviously severely hindered our pressure in my house.
Yep.
I couldn't tell you, and they had to fix it 3 times. And well, and it's not, it shows you, so, well, gosh, they should have done it right the first time. Well, it's all about pressure, right? So you fix one, you fix something else, and depending on how you fix this and what's old over here, you introduce a different level of pressure each time. It's not a consistent. There's not backflow everywhere. Every little joint doesn't have a, what I'm saying? Like, it's not. So it would, and we call them. I'd be like, hey guys, I got water coming out of my meter going down the street, so thousands of gallons of water. So I can
Hmm.
see how, right to your point, and it's a connection of two of the things you've already mentioned: aging infrastructure, and then losing water that's already, been treated to be drinkable. So that's really interesting. Um, if we go on, let's see what we got here. So, how might stormwater management practices need to evolve to meet future water quality and quantity regulatory requirements? Okay, so that's next up on our notes. So, what are your thoughts on that, Christian?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting piece. Stormwater in general, the core practice of stormwater, I think, will stay the same. And that was, as I mentioned earlier, how can we best institute technologies that create a built environment that acts in its pre-developed condition? That's the whole aim of stormwater. So how can we be more effective at slowly releasing the water to minimize erosion at discharge locations? How can we improve the quality of the discharged water to protect the health and the vitality of the waterways? Because we know that really that there is a correlation that directly impacts the global health of the environment due or based on the water quality, right? So how can we make these systems smarter and more efficient? Um, implementation of the monitoring software, as I mentioned earlier, the telemetry devices. That's a huge piece that's on the horizon, and in certain cases, they're already in use. smart application of the right technology, I think, is key, right? The right environment is, of course, also key. So, for instance, a deep injection well makes a lot of sense in California, in Arizona, where groundwater recharge is needed. But in the Pacific Northwest, where I live, green infrastructure and technology like biopod are more applicable. So the technologies improve and overall awareness of what stormwater is and the importance of its use and the resource as a resource and not a nuisance will drive better policy and ultimately will result in higher performing devices. So really we just need to be smarter about how we are managing stormwater and looking at it as a resource, which it is, instead of just getting rid of it, which was a process and a technique that I think had been used, in years prior, which is how quickly can we capture the water and discharge it to the downstream water body. But we had seen the impacts of doing that because stormwater is very dirty. I don't think people really think about how much pollution is really carried away in stormwater, because if you think about a
I
typical
know.
city environment where you have your gas and your greases and your TSS and your glass and you name it, anything that you see within the gutter, that's all running off into your stormwater, and that ultimately will go down to some downstream receiving water body. So we are finding that people's awareness around that fact and understanding that we should be using this water and not just getting rid of it is increasing. And so I think as that awareness is continuing to increase, we're going to see better policy and we're going to see more initiatives around some of those pollutants of concern. So stormwater really is the first line of defense in protecting our environment. So I just see a really great future for stormwater, looking at the innovation that's going to take place and already how regulatory initiatives and requirements are shifting to target some of these more difficult pollutants of concern.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's just so funny. I just think it's such a slow moving process, though.
Yeah,
I mean, so to your point, eh, the way we look at it now, or how it was looked at one point, it was just like, oh man, if we don't get rid of this, it's going to flood my house,
right.
right? And then we went to, oh, maybe we shouldn't put that stuff in there. Look, the river's burning, right?
Yep.
And now, and then you fast forward another 50 years and we're still like this, still the general public still doesn't, because like you're talking about the contaminants, still see people, when they get the heavy rains and let their kids, their kids are out there playing in the ditch. And I'm like,
Mm,
I got friends that kayak in channels. We got our line channels here, and it backs up to neighborhoods back, and they'll throw their kayak in there and kayak
yep.
in place because it's like it's rolling, so they can get a little kayak exercise in there. I'm like, that water's gross. You shouldn't, like, you wouldn't go in the ocean when they've got the warnings up, or
Right.
whatever. So like, why would you why would you get in that? It's because people don't know, so I think that's another big challenge with all the technology that we have at our fingertips to
Yeah.
try to improve the quality of the water itself, is to improve the knowledge out there for you know the just the average citizen that just they flush their toilet, they don't think about it, and so they
No.
need to know that stormwater, we need to have some sort of mechanism other than their house flooding to make them
Right.
care, right? And that's the challenge. But it leads us right into what's next. So what is next? What is the future? I mean, how is what's Oldcastle and yourself, what are you all doing in the future of stormwater?
Uh, yeah, some really exciting stuff. I appreciate the little bit of a teaser at the beginning, but we're,
Right.
we're always looking forward. How can we support innovation in the infrastructure space? As such, we've developed an innovation fund. The innovation fund is $250 million that is solely set aside to develop new technologies, especially water infrastructure. We're partnering with construction and climate technology companies operating across the construction channel and developing the next generation of advanced sustainable building products. So a good example of one of those initiatives, we recently partnered with a team of researchers out of the University of South Florida who were awarded an EPA grant to study a technology advanced version of our biopod biofilter and its ability to remove some of the emerging pollutants of concern that I had mentioned. So this is just one
Right.
example of how we're innovating projects within our own business, and again leveraging those funds to do the research. Similarly, another exciting development in the stormwater world, which is not necessarily correlated to Oldcastle specifically, but I think everybody is going to be able to take advantage of this program. I know they will. Is the STEP program, which
Okay,
is
but before you go into the STEP program, I want to clarify something
sure.
for the listeners. The innovation fund that you're talking about, if I'm understanding that correctly,
Yeah.
like as a product manager for Oldcastle, you work within a budget, right? On
Mm-hmm.
your yearly budget to do the things that you're trying to do. That fund has nothing to do with your yearly budget, right? That fund is for
No.
other people to apply and get funding through that opportunity to further innovation in stormwater. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So has
Yeah.
nothing to do with our own internal budget. This is a
Right,
separate
right.
fund, right? This
Solely
is
separate that you guys are have some people, colleges and universities and researchers and other people can tap into, obviously they have to apply and but they
right.
can tap into to further innovation within our industry, right?
If they're looking for funding in the stormwater space or the infrastructure space, and they think that they have a novel, innovative idea,
Yeah.
go to our website, and we'll send you a link. We'll include a link in
Yeah.
the show notes, I believe, and you
Yeah.
can go onto that
Sure.
website and you can again apply, or rather present your project. And if there is a good synergy there, we will be able to support that with those innovation funds. So there's a lot of great opportunities, especially at the university level, to take advantage of this, right? This is money out there that people can go and grab to support their own scientific endeavors. And it's just really exciting to see, Oldcastle's a big company, right? There's no getting around that. But I think
Right.
the fact that we are able to put $250 million out into the public space to support innovation really is supporting the initiative of building our environment better, right? And building our built
Absolutely.
infrastructure
Yeah.
better. And
Yeah.
anyway, I'm really encouraged by that because I think that there are so many smarter people out there in the world that have great ideas that we can take advantage and leverage those where maybe they just otherwise didn't have, the backing or the ability to go out and do what they need to do. So I think that there is a lot of opportunities out there for everybody to take advantage of those.
Cool. Yeah, yeah, no, and that's why I wanted to stop and make a point of it because
Yes, absolutely.
again, big company, everybody. So for the haters out there, hey, and then they didn't have to do it. They don't have to do that. And you're like, oh well, blah blah blah. It's a tax. I don't care all the other ramifications. They don't have to do it. And so
Yeah.
if you've got ideas and you don't want to be a hater and you want to make a change and an impact in stormwater, there's $250 million. Get after it. So anyways, to go on to your next point, you were talking about I think the step initiative, which I have no idea what it is, and it's another acronym. So let's go.
More acronyms. We love our acronyms in this industry. I think in general, people love their acronyms. But yeah, this one is really exciting. So just to kind of preface this, in general, there are two big bodies that are reviewing and validating stormwater technologies out there, and that's Washington's TAPE program and New Jersey's DEP. New Jersey DEP through NJCAT, right? There's a certification body and then the verification body. So anyway, without getting into the nuance of that, those are the two bodies that everybody really looks to provide insight into the performance of proprietary BMPs. And there are a lot of hurdles to getting into those programs. You have to have field testing and monitoring, that qualify, and it can be very expensive and time consuming. New Jersey is a lab protocol So again, you have to have the facilities to be able to support those initiatives. So the STEP program is a really great step forward, no pun intended there, to generating and creating a national standard for stormwater practices. So what STEP is, it is the Stormwater Testing and Evaluation for Products and Practices, aka the STEP Center of Excellence, which is associated
It's like,
to NAMSA, which is
oh my
another
gosh.
acronym, but it's the
Oh yeah.
National Municipal Stormwater Alliance. So NAMSA
That
is
one
the
I'm
one.
familiar with.
There
Yes.
you go.
That,
There you go.
yeah,
We
that one I
finally hit
know.
one. Uh,
Yeah, that one I know.
but anyway, they've been established to promote the development, or rather, this whole program, right, is developed to establish the promotion of national testing standards and verification for proprietary products, but also public domain products as well. So it's led by volunteers from across the sector, comprised of stakeholders, producers of manufactured devices like Oldcastle, technical practitioners, researchers, federal and state regulators, nonprofits, you name it. Everybody is participating in this, and they are developing national standards around these treatment devices so that anybody can go out and test their devices underneath these protocols. And every state can consider this as a means of approving these technologies for use in counties, cities, whatever it may be. So really, it is allowing those other programs to not carry the full burden of validating these products and creating a national standard that anybody can adopt. So it's really exciting, and they are in the process of right now. Trash capture, I think, is the first thing that group is really focusing on, which I think is really a great choice because it's such a critical pollutant of concern to remove. And
Mhm.
I think there is a lot of
Yeah.
focus on that right now in general as you look, to see again, kind of the impact that the polypropylenes, the plastics, the forever chemicals have on the environment
Mm-hmm.
and ourselves. And so, anyway, this whole program is really going to be a step forward for stormwater on the national platform. And ASTM is going to adopt those standards into their manuals as well. So they will be standard specifications.
Wow. Is there time? How long has this been going? What's the timeline on some of this stuff? Where are they in some of these, the
Yeah,
process?
they're making great progress. I mean, this whole the program really, I think, kicked off back in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, and it's been gaining more and more traction. Where it has lived has changed over time. I think WEF was the initial owner of this program, and it found a better home with NAMSA as it just more closely aligned to kind of their stormwater initiatives and practices. But from my understanding, the goal is to have the trash capture ASTM standard published and agreed to by June of 2024, or as soon as June of 2024. So this is coming
Okay.
very,
That's
very
great.
quickly down the pipeline. And like I said, they're starting with trash capture, but really will expand into other categories as well. So this is going to be a significant improvement for everybody in the stormwater industry to be able to, speak to their performance of their products to a nationalized standard versus it being more regionally focused like the Washington and New Jersey testing.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is great. We'll link this in the show notes, 100%. So you can go. I'm looking at their website now.
Yeah.
That's excellent. All right, cool. Well, what other? So I mean, we've kind of covered. Gosh, I feel like we've been around the world, Christian. We've talked. We've gone all the way from, the history, some basics, some basic stormwater 101, all the way to the future and innovations uh, of all types, including the technology that's actually existed for a while. To be
Yeah.
honest, I mean, do you feel like some of that tech is finally coming down to where budget's always a thing, right? There's two
Yeah.
things that's always a thing: budget and hidden costs, meaning the ugly word maintenance, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So, I mean, so do you feel like the cost is coming around to where more and more cities are going to be able to implement some of this technology? Is that kind of what's happening? Do you feel like, or
Definitely.
what's spurring, you know, the adoption, if you will, because it always seems it's hard to get people to change.
It is hard to get people to change, of course, but I think as awareness increases around what stormwater is and how it ultimately impacts everybody, whether or not they have the direct line of sight to see it, uh, that's going to push policy, right? So I think people's voices, right, and clamoring for improvement in our water quality. You look at things like Flint, Michigan, right, and you see
Mm.
issues, right, in the potable water, significant issues that have put that conversation into a national spotlight. Things of that nature, as horrible as they are pushing the envelope in terms of how to support these initiatives and how to do what we have done previously better. So, coming back to maintenance, I am seeing that is becoming more of a concern and more of a consideration for the selection of proprietary systems. And there has been some semblance of, the systems need to be able to be maintained effectively and efficiently, but there hasn't really been precedent set on how often those need to be maintained, right? And that's the kicker,
Right.
because you can have a system that performs very well at a high flow rate, but you have to maintain it every month, every other month. So balancing the efficiency with the footprint and the maintainability of the product is really where we want to get to, right? And I
Yeah.
think that the race to the bottom of shrinking the system footprints as small as they can be is not necessarily the most considerate in terms of how funds are being allocated for the maintenance of these BMPs, or how often they may need to be replaced, inspected, you name it. So I I'm encouraged. I think in my 10 years I've seen a big development, from just looking at HDS devices as a singular means of treatment, right, as separating TSS, now to where we're looking at these very small fractions of pollutants that we're trying to remove from the stormwater. So it's improving vastly, and some of the technology has waffled, and I think the you know like biofiltration, for example, that is the green infrastructure push that is very prevalent right now. We're seeing a lot of desire for green infrastructure. Again, I think, and it speaks to the initiative of stormwater of creating kind of that built environment similar to the pre-developed conditions. So we're seeing improvement in that front and awareness on how we can make these technologies act and feel more user friendly, more applicable to to infrastructure development in general.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I also feel like there's a couple of things going on as far as, I used to be the young guy. Now I feel like I'm the old guy after doing this. I've only been in the industry for 12 years, but I think there's demographic, there's aging of our city. People are changing. People that have grown up and with their phone in their hand is more prevalent. And so it's easier to talk to somebody and explain to them, the upside of the upfront cost of something
Yeah.
that has tech connected to it that can save them on the backside, because it'll tell them when it needs to be maintained.
Right.
Because you could have three of the same devices across the city, and the standard could be once a quarter cleaning. Well, no, not true. If that one device on that side of the city just gets more trash than the other two combined,
Hmm.
and so you don't know unless you know, and you can't know unless something tells you. So if we can combine the tech with the treatment, with the right people, understanding the long term benefits, and then we can get the maintenance right. I mean, it's just all goes hand in hand in hand, you know. At least I mean that's kind of how I think about it. But then I'm a tech guy, so I would love nothing more than, I love the idea of a smart city that's saving money. And I'm not trying to eliminate. There's plenty of work to be done by our wonderful staffs of city that work at the city. Plenty of work,
Oh yeah.
So if we could do it more efficiently, then we can do a better job. Like which is the end goal of having better water. So, any final thoughts? Anything we missed? I feel like we covered a heck of a lot. But if you got any final thoughts for anybody out there listening that you'd like to share before we sign off, uh, I throw it back
Yeah,
to you. The floor is
yeah,
yours.
thank you. No, I just really appreciate the time and the platform to be
Absolutely.
able to highlight, stormwater in general. It's very near and dear to my heart. And, being able to represent for Oldcastle, we very much appreciate that. I think the last plug here is, of course, if you are interested in our products, if you are interested in the Innovation Fund or the STEP program, any of the things that we talked about today, there will be links that we will provide. And again, come to our website. There is so much information to be found there. And yeah, again, thank you for the time. It was really great.
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel very safe to say that if you just wanted to talk about stormwater and you had some thoughts or opinions, I feel like Christian would be more than happy to just have that conversation, regardless if it has to do with any kind of products or any of the other things we mentioned today. Definitely, he definitely loves it. I can tell, I can see it, I can hear it, and so your email will be in the show notes as well. I'm sure that's probably the best way to reach you, or they can find you on LinkedIn, I'm assuming, or whatever, reach
All
out
the
to you,
above. Yep.
all the things. We'll link all that in the show notes, and you can have a continue this conversation with Christian and ask him your questions. So, sir, I appreciate it. It was wonderful meeting you. Keep up the fight in our stormwater world, and I guess maybe I'll see you this year at one of the conferences. Thanks so much
Yeah.
for coming on the pod. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Take care.